Trials of Mana, or as it's known in Japan, Seiken Densetsu-san, is a game that not many in the West know about. The game was never released abroad until just this last year, to help drum up some hype for the remake, which is set to arrive on April 24th, 2020 on the Switch, PlayStation 4, and Steam. It's truly unfortunate, because the original game, which came out in 1995, just a year before the release of the Nintendo 64, and only 6 months after Chrono Trigger, was a perfect swan song to JRPG lovers on the Super Nintendo. But literal decades have gone by, and apart from a fan translation in 1999, not much has been said about the game from Square. So it amazed everyone when they announced that not only would they be releasing a translated version of the game in the West, but also remaking the game entirely for modern consoles. But why should you care about the Trials of Mana remake? Surely the Final Fantasy VII remake is more important, right? Well, I mean, yeah, probably, but practically nobody has crazy nostalgia for Seiken Densetsu 3, unlike the waves of people who will still tell you that Final Fantasy VII is the best game ever made. I mean, they're wrong, but still. Seiken Densetsu 3 was an action RPG way ahead of its time. There are some things that it did that I don't think a game has done as well since. And taking the base of that and adding a fresh layer of paint and some modern game design could really make this game sing. Let me break it down for you. And please, if you enjoy this video, consider subscribing to our channel. First off, when starting the original game, you got to pick 3 out of 6 characters. One would be your main character, and the other 2 your partners. Each of these characters has a fully fleshed out life in the world of the game, and you get to experience their prologue story section, which sets their adventure into motion. And no matter which trio you pick, the game has a reason for each of the characters to meet up and team up on their quest. Think of it like Octopath Traveler, except if it was good. The characters each have their own personal goals, although they're really split off into 3 different pairs. One pair trying to stop the Dragon Lord, one pair trying to stop the Dark Majesty, and one pair trying to stop the Masked Mage. Depending on who your main character is, you get set on their path, with the other 2 characters adding more stuff based on their own stories. But if you pick 2 characters from the same path, you get a lot more dialogue between the 2 of them. This is one thing I'm interested to see how they work out in the remake. Hopefully they'll add more dialogue between all the characters to make things flow more seamlessly no matter who you pick. The original game had a length somewhere about 22 to 25 hours. So if you had more time, it makes for a good second playthrough with the rest of the characters. However, the story in the game isn't exactly something to write home about. It's super tropey, sometimes feeling like they played a game of RPG story Mad Libs and just filled in the blanks. But some individual moments are very memorable, including Kevin the Beastman, whose father, the king, essentially forces him to kill his best friend. And the way everything ties together, regardless of which 3 characters you choose, makes it still super impressive, especially for a game that was made 25 years ago. Secondly, the gameplay. If you've played the seminal classic Secret of Mana, you know what to expect here. If you haven't, well, it's an action RPG. But you can also stop time to cycle through a circular menu and use items or cast spells. Personally, I like variety in my party, taking the fighter with the magician and then another character for possible support. In the original, I picked the cleric, but I really don't think I'll be doing that in the remake because I can't stand her voice acting. But I'll get into that more in a minute. The game not only features a level up system which lets you choose where to allocate stats and build your characters, but also includes a class system which would allow the characters to choose either a light or dark path, which grants them abilities and skills unique to the classes, and can seriously influence how you'd want to play them, which is super cool. Also, it should be mentioned that the original game could be fairly hard. There are definitely some moments where you might need to stop and grind a little bit. Personally, this is a bit of a turn-off to me now, but I didn't mind it as much when I was a kid playing this over summer break. So, how is the remake going to tackle all of this apart from just being a 3D version of the classic? Thankfully, they put out a free demo this week, which goes about an hour and a half into the game until you defeat the first boss. I highly recommend checking out this demo for a few reasons, even if you get turned off by what I'm about to say, since, hey, it's free. The Trials of Mana remake feels dead on like a PlayStation 2 game with the graphics up-resed so they could run on the Nintendo Switch. Please understand, I mean this in a good way. If me saying that has you saying, nope, not interested, then I still recommend checking out the demo, because I think this game is a whole lot better than the sum of its parts. But why do I say this? For starters, the voice acting is wonderful, as in you have to wonder who the hell was on quality assurance. And as I said before, I will likely refuse to play as the cleric Charlotte because they literally adapted her dialogue the way it was written to be like a child with a lisp, But instead, it comes across like Scooby-Doo, except instead of adding R's to every other word, she adds W's. It's not realistic, and it makes no sense.
I grew up with no parents, but there was one priest in Wendo that was always nice to me.
One positive I want to shout out in the demo is that in the original game, you only got to see one character's intro. But in the remake, once you meet a new companion, the game gives you the option to play that character's prologue or not, which is an excellent choice, allowing the player to become more invested in the story if they want to. What about the game's combat? This is probably where my comparison to PS2 games is the strongest. It feels like how I remember playing Kingdom Hearts 1 or Dark Cloud 2 felt. There is some slight stiffness in the movement, but not in a bad way if that makes sense. There are 2 buttons for regular attacks, which tie into a combo system. The melee attacking feels like a step above hack and slash, but just barely. This isn't to say it's not fun though. Skills are no longer instant hits, you and enemies have to aim them, and a little area of effect will show up on the ground for you to dodge out of, which, in the demo at least, made the game a lot easier. You can also tie some items and skills to buttons, so you won't have to constantly pause the game just to use them. And you can now jump, which not only adds verticality to the maps, which I welcome, but you can also jump up and attack flying enemies, which adds more variety to the combat. And I didn't once feel the need to grind to level up. Speaking of, the leveling system has been changed, but in another positive way. I loved how the original let you choose which stat you wanted to put points into, and this game does the same. But now, there are bonuses for increasing a stat to a certain point. For example, on one character I could invest 2 points into strength and get an extra 5-point bonus. Or on another character I could invest 4 points into strength and get a passive to help break down enemies' armor faster. This is a really cool system that I could see adding an extra layer of strategy in how you build your characters, and I love it. Also, and this may be the least important for people who didn't play the original, but if you have any nostalgia for this game, then I definitely recommend checking it out. They did a really good job at capturing the energy of the original. The maps, music, and character designs all had a lot of love poured into them. This week I did a stream where I played the first hour and a half of the original and then played the remake, and just seeing and hearing all the work they did remaking this game really warmed my heart. Also, come watch me stream sometime. The biggest questions I have left for the remake are how have they updated the story? Does each character have more interaction with each other regardless of their story path? What about the class change system? It was easily one of the standouts from the original, so how does it get used here? They've already said that they're adding 2 additional classes for each character, but how is that going to work, since each character's class charts featured branching paths? Do they just let you choose the 4th level class regardless of where you are in the branching path? Or do you have to be maxed out in one direction? Also, they've already mentioned that these classes will be accessed in extra content not in the original game that takes place after the story. I'm wondering how much extra content there will be. One thing I'm definitely looking forward to is the addition of a New Game Plus mode, which has been confirmed. This should allow you to pick a new set of characters and get through the story a lot more easily, showcasing how the rest of the cast plays and what their stories are like without all the hassle of starting from scratch. Ultimately, I'm really excited for this game. Like I said, it does feel like a slightly better looking PS2 game, but in the best of ways. It's going to drop towards the end of April, and assuming I have finished Final Fantasy VII Remake by that point, and I'm not too burnt out on action RPGs, I will absolutely dive into this remake, especially since it's going to be portable on my Switch. Also, shout out to Square for making the shopkeepers still do the same dance that they did in the original game. But what about you? Are you excited for this game? Let me know why or why not in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing for more content from us. Also, check out our Twitch, where we do a weekly talk show covering all the current gaming news, and maybe even head over to our Patreon, where if you support us with just $1 a month, you get access to exclusive content. And for even more, check out our Discord, where you can interact with us and talk to us all about games and whatever else. But until next time, thank you once again for watching, and have a wonderful day.